Hello, hello, hello. This is part two by mistake or by a stoppage of the camera. It stopped, and I was discussing the 360 citizen integrated public security protocols because I just heard the ambulance, and I was just discussing the need for citizens when you hear the sirens of the ambulance, the firefighters, or the public security, the police, to do the 180. Beautiful flowers. Look at these. Look at these. Gorgeous, eh? So the protocol, when you hear the sirens, whether you're driving by the car or of course doing by the driving, and that is 180 to the left, to the right, 180 to the right, to the left, so 180 of course to the right, to the left, and that is what you have to do of course in the situational aspect. So you do the 180 to the right and the 180 to the left. So 180 to the left, 180 to the right gives you that 360 degrees. That's why it's called the circle's 360 degree circle public citizen integrated security protocol. So beautiful. Look at this. Gorgeous. Yeah. Love it, love it, love it, love it. As we go to the mountain by different sides, and this is part two. It is September 17, 2025. In the year of darkness, it is the year 2029, and it is the 15th of November, and we're going north. Part two of the September 17th protocols, marching towards the mountain, my second home. It is Wednesday, and just got that remote at the Canadian Tire. I'm glad I did get it on the cheaper side, to get it on the cheaper side, and I got it cheaper than I was expecting. Of course, I hope that is gonna work, because it is of course a more affordable one. So it's supposed to be universal, and it's supposed to work for the Roku, and with the Roku it's supposed to work. So I certainly hope that it works. Saluting the firefighters, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the electricians, the plumbers, all those welders, all those involved in the production, distribution of food. That's how we're gonna get on that drill. And saluting the firefighters, the train conductors, the bakers, the nurses, the electricians, the plumbers, all those involved in the production, distribution of food. Look at those beautiful flowers there. Oh yeah. Train conductors, bus drivers. Saluting the plumbers, electricians, the welders, all those doctors. Look at those beautiful yellow flowers there. It's kind of in the corner, just gives you a little bit of cuteness, eh? Added cuteness here as we go on the protocol, and that's how we're gonna go drilling. And we're gonna turn by this side here, and we're gonna go all the way to the mountain. I wanted to go towards the sun, but since we have no sun with there, it's useless for me to go. And these are beautiful flowers. And that is of course the beautification of the cities, which I love. What a beauty. Isn't that just beautiful there in the corner? Wow. So all that work is a work, is all this work. And again, of course, the protocols, of course, to be in the conjunction. Look at his beauty as well. That is something which we have, of course, to manifest in all the interdictions, of course, of the civilizational complex where we are now. And of course, this is the influential aspect of our civilizational complexes, where we are in the dynamics of the impartation of this privilege of civilization, which we all share, as I was discussing earlier. So yeah, grateful, thankful. My rent's paid, electricity bill's paid, got food and coffee, Rent's paid, electricity bill's paid, got food and coffee, although financially stressed, Got a lot of things to be grateful for. As I was discussing earlier, about Asperger's. I guess I'm just gonna finalize it and spend 4 minutes, because I have this neurological mental divergent condition known as HFA, high functioning autism. So a lot of the problems which have come with it have also affected me in many ways, such as losing employment, and I was depressed and suicidal. So actually celebrating today. Turn your heads left and right before you cross the street. Celebrating today, of course. Kind of see where it's going, and kind of get that dimension, for it is going south. I was trying to calculate the speed. It looks like the speed is steady at some, not 30, but 100. I was gonna say 100, maybe 30 miles an hour. I can't calculate for sure, but I can only estimate. So all those estimations, of course, where we are now can be from some mathematics which engage our minds in a different way due to this neurological mental condition known as Asperger's. Just before I was discussing, of course, how sometimes we just calculate, even now actually, when I'm marching every day, I do it constantly. Here's another one. Now they're going south. How fast it's going. I don't know how fast it's going, but it's going, of course, fast on the way with that, and it's going south, that I know, but maybe 156 miles an hour. It looks like the speed is also constant, that it's neither increasing nor decreasing. It just looks like it's steady. And another thing that I was doing in part 1 of the video of this September 17 was I was calculating the consumption and the potential cost of gas, and the increase of the cost of gas, which of course has increased disproportionately since 2000, February 2000. It was, the average price of gas was 93 cents. So now it's about 163. That is of course a high cost. And of course 163, being it that it's a high cost, that has also added stress, financial stress, to a vast majority of the population, to a vast majority of the population. And so that's just the way the mathematics work in terms of the calculation. Beautiful. Look at that cutie. Love it. Oh yeah, that's nice. So for example, these cars all have a different consumption, meaning that per 100 kilometers, and I'm not going to say miles or gallons, I'm just going to say, of course, the kilometers and liters, because gallons and miles can be, of course, different. So all these have a different consumption level, but that is a constant. So that is a constant, meaning that they all consume or will consume the same amount, right? The constant, mathematical constant, is the amount of consumption that each car consumes. What is the variable is the price of gas. Because if, for example, if this car consumes 10 liters per 100 kilometers, that means that in 2020 February they paid $9, right? For 10 liters, they paid $9.30. But this month, for that same amount, they pay $16.60. So that is more than $7, which is more than 70% increase, while the salaries have stagnated. That's what I was calculating in the first part with, I guess, an intensity. I just checked myself because I just didn't realize that I was going on and on about it, which is a kind of a thing of Aspie's. I guess I could calculate and speculate mathematics, percentages, and costs, which I kind of do for hours and hours and hours because of this divergence of the brain. Having Asperger's is something which makes me part of this tiny small community fraction of the population of less than 1%, but I'm part of those unofficially diagnosed, of half 50% of Aspies are unofficially diagnosed. So 50% of Aspies are unofficially diagnosed. Look at that beautiful house there. Isn't that nice? See? So half of course of Aspies are unofficially diagnosed. So I'm part of those half of Aspies who don't have an official diagnosis, although it started about 9 years ago. Look at those bees. About 9 years ago, individual citizens which do have experience in the healthcare system and who have worked with Aspies and people with autism, because having Asperger's, you're on the spectrum, right, on the autistic spectrum. So citizens which have experience with Aspies, this is danger here, so I'm just going to push it to the side. That could be. Actually, I'm just gonna remove it, and because the wheels can break it, and this has to be put in the recycling, because if there's children and the wheels can pass by it and it can break, of course. So for public security, I'm gonna throw it into the garbage. I just need to disinfect my hands now. That was right in the middle. Imagine a car comes, there's children playing, and there's the car and goes into their face or their eyes. And maybe that's what I always save, to save somebody, as I do in my many years of removing sharp objects and other things alarming, or when the car is about to hit somebody, I'm saying, hey, watch it, look at these beautiful yellows, this quadruple my smile right here. Maybe that's what I was saved, because I guess I died many times. And I used to live in a very moldy place. I didn't even have a kitchen. Well, I had a kitchen, but it wasn't really a kitchen. It was like inside my room. The kitchen was, so it was the room, kitchen room. I had no separate kitchen. I used to live on the island of Montreal in Côte-des-Neiges, underground, small underground basement. It was a small underground basement. Right? It was a small underground basement, very moldy, and I moved from there, and I was depressed. I was suicidal for a few years. I crossed Canada coast to coast, celebrating today that victory over depression and being suicidal. In 2017, with my anonymous friend. See how we're on the mountain? That's already far off, and yesterday we pointed the camera from another place on down there where we were, and that is where we were down there, so that is just something which we gotta be grateful about, of all the satisfactory, of course, projection where we are, of course, now to live, and of course to integrate where we are doing the dynamics of checking out these beautiful flowers, which of course resemble the Napolitan ice cream. So of course I lived in that underground room off Sun Temple basement, very small, very moldy, very moldy, small, moldy. That was of course just the situational aspects where we have, of course, lived and done. And look at this. Isn't that gorgeous? And that is something which we have, of course, to be and to do in the propositions where we are now, for all the satisfactory, of course, events of the life-affirming life forces which are endeavored to be now. Of course, that we are conclusively, to be in all that domain. And in the public, I got myself added responsibilities, duties, and obligations now, vis-a-vis others, as others have vis-a-vis myself. If I would have stayed in my underground room off Sun Temple, I would have not had the same, right? I would have not had the same, I would have not had the same. So that is just the situational awareness of the conduct in the public. So back to where I used to live, I have trouble remembering my life prior to 2014, February 2014. That's a beautiful house there. Isn't that a beautiful house? Prior to 2014. Prior to 2014. Prior to 2014. February 2014. So my life, of course, is a mystery prior to 2014. I have trouble remembering my life prior to 2014. So that is, of course, my life, of course, where I don't remember prior to 2014, where I was, of course, and where I was on the dictum, and that is just the proposition where we are now, of course, to be in all the situational awareness where we are now. Right? So I don't remember, I have trouble remembering my life prior to February 2014, which is a long time ago already. 11 years and 7 months. 11 years and 7 months. 11 years and 7 months. That's a long time if you think about it. February 2014 is 11 years and 7 months. 11 years and 7 months. So that is quite a while ago, Quite a while ago. Quite a while ago if you think about it. 11 years and 7 February. Winter 2014. Winter 2014, So whatever. I remember I survived a vicious surprise attack. I survived that. I was attacked. I was hit in the head a few times, and it was a vicious surprise attack. I fell, hit my head on the concrete. Had a dislocated right arm, right shoulder, and was bloodied up, So I went to the Jewish General Hospital. They replaced my right arm. Recracked my right arm in place, and was put on some meds. I've given myself a new deadline, October 31st, October 31st. Gotta congratulate, and gotta go up and up and up, and That is something which we have to do, to get on the situational awareness of all the situation. All the situational awareness where we are, All the situational awareness we are. Now, look at these beautiful flowers, Look at these beautiful flowers, so gorgeous there. So nice. That is just the situational awareness, So I guess I was saved because of a purpose, Of course, a purpose, of course, is maybe I saved a few along the way in this past more than 11 years and 7 months. Whatever it is, sometimes memory comes back. I just remember I was viciously attacked by surprise and hit in the head, had a dislocated right arm, right shoulder, and I was put on some meds. Look, see? You could see it there on that. You could see it there on that, Yeah, you can see it there on that. You can see it there, right? And here we're gonna turn. We're gonna turn. And of course, that is what we are today in the management of affairs, and there's something where we gotta get doing with that, and that is something where we have to, of course, traduce and be transmissive about, and I guess live with the scars and live with the joy today, all the joy that is today, that I know somebody's making love, and the message is HUG, hug like you never hugged before, and I saw some people kissing, hugging, holding hands on the way here to my second home, the mountains, so that gives me a little bit of HOPE, a little bit of that hope with it as I go to my second home, so that's always pleasant to see, and as we rock and roll it for the second part of this March event, going to the mountain as I have my ASPI routine, and whatever the case may be, prior to 2014, February, winter 2014, of course, prior to winter 2014, it is, of course, maybe I was an alcoholic, maybe I was drinking, maybe I was on dope, maybe I was on that, maybe I was a junkie, maybe I was a junkie. Maybe I was a junkie, or I did my second time, and that's just something when you gotta get doing with that, it's something that you're gonna have to be aware of together, that it's a possibility that I was doing drugs, that I was, of course, doing that alcohol, that is something which I have, of course, remissive about, and I just don't have the memory, memory about that, and that is just something what we have, of course, to be, and gotta get it on that, and gotta get it on the go with that, and that is just something which, of course, I have to be mindful, of course, of all the situational awareness, of course, to get it on the go like that, and that is something which I gotta be doing like that, and doing on the go, and doing on the go for that, so that's just something what we gotta get doing on the remissive side, and something to be integrated about in our holy daily life activities, and that's just something what we got, to be transmissive about, and to get on the go now for the transmissive on the left and on the right, and all, of course, in the diplomatic affairs of all the societal aspects, where, of course, are integrated in the plateau, and integrated, of course, and, of course, integrated in the plateau, where we are, of course, remissive, to be mindful and to be grateful about all the civilizational complexes, and all, of course, the life-affirming matters where we are now. Of course, is something which you gotta be doing, of course, now, and to get it on the civilizational aspects where we are now, all the domain, of course, where we are, to be informed about and to categorize all our life-affirming matters where we are now, in the domain, to be plural about, and gotta get doing on that, Exercising is always good, and always fun. I've been beginning, my fitness journey a few years ago, and I've been on that fitness journey for a while now. I've been on that fitness journey for a while now. I lost between 80 and 93 pounds. I was depressed, suicidal, for a few days. Look at this beautiful black. Need some red and some rainbow on it. It says cougar on it, and That's a little bit of that rock and roll for that. Rock and roll for the bakers, butchers, bakers, nurses, truckers, firefighters, plumbers, electricians, those daycare workers changing some diapers, and I guess even for the cougar, I wish I could give my anonymous friend a house by the river there, and the house by the river. I wish I could give my anonymous friend that house by the river, you know. I wish I could give my anonymous friend a house by the river, and that is just, of course, the modus operandi where we have, of course, to be now grateful, you know. I just want to go check that garden. That garden it looks so delicious that I'm really into it from afar. I see it blurred here. I was prescribed some glasses, but those glasses seem to not have to be, I can't buy them, to be honest, because it's a financial stress. But yeah, I definitely just love it. And oh yeah, definitely these ones are super nice. What a beautiful garden. See, even the bees love it. Oh yeah, a good 9 on that. Ah yeah, the yellow ones. Ah yeah, that's Captain Garden, right? I just love it. I wish I could give my anonymous friend a house, and this one, because it got that red. I would take it for me, you know. I'll be close to the mountain. I will be going to the mountain. I will be kind of having the same routine. My only stress now is financial, you know, economic, and I guess Asperger's, being an Aspie. And okay, don't give me the millionaires, billionaires who have Asperger's, and those are a few, right? It's the unemployment among people like myself with Asperger's is 80%. You know that, right? It's 80%. So just don't go that route. Don't go that route. And if you're a millionaire, billionaire Aspie, keep that in mind. Hire Aspies, because it's 80% unemployment is totally unacceptable. We cannot accept that. Brothers and sisters, we cannot accept 80% Asperger's to be unemployed. We cannot. We have to work on that. Please. Work has to be done. So I was attacked by surprise years and years ago. I was hit in the head a few times, hit my head on the concrete and was bloodied up. I had a dislocated right arm, shoulder. I went to the Jewish General Hospital. I gave myself a new deadline by October 31st to retrieve the archives. Gave myself a new to retrieve. Maybe I'll go next Monday or Tuesday to retrieve the archives. Make a request for archival request. Archives. For the archives, you know, to be. Oh wow. Wow. Let's see, is it 2013? Yeah. How come so many $5 bills are 2013? See, I just did a video, emission 2013. What happened in 2013? That so much money has been printed in 2013. Not just money, the $5 bills, specifically $5 bills. So to be honest, more than 90% of all the $5 bills that I've gotten in the past from the bank teller, that I've gotten in the past years, 3.5 years, let's say, have come from being issued in 2013 emission. 2013, like this one, right? If I just posted a video about that on my YouTube channel. See? Issued 2013. Now my Aspie brain, because how it functions mathematically, is now going deep in mathematics, financial mathematics. I'm no expert, no doctor, but I guess because we have to know how many how come so many $5 bills were printed and thus issued, that says issued, right, in 2013? Issued in 2013. How come so many were issued in 2013? So there's an answer. There's a definite interesting affair, but at least I guess in Montreal, the island of Montreal, people with $5 bills from the ATM machine, and now I gotta disinfect my hands because hey, you never know. I'm just gonna disinfect my hands because I touched the money. I found it, and interestingly enough, providentially, I was just discussing that my only stress now is financial, and I find a $5 bill while marching. Is there another $5 bill? The other $5 bill I'll give to my anonymous friend. If I make a man a bayonet, you know it's a mask. I'm like, what's happening? $5 bills on every other street. I guess some people can afford to give more charity, and I'm just financially stressed, but I gotta be thankful my rent's paid, electricity bill's paid. The only bill I have to pay left is my phone bill. So I just spent on the remote because it was kind of a loan gift, so I had to replace the remote. I hope it works. It's supposed to work for Roku. And I got it cheaper at that other Canadian Tire. Just gonna disinfect my hands with hand sanitizer and continue. Oh yeah, not too much. I'm just gonna put a bit. It kills the bacteria, germs. It's kind of gooey, slimy, but it works. So let's go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and add some seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, that is something which I gotta be doing like that, and that is something which I gotta be, man. Yeah, so that is quite a joy because I was just discussing, my financial stress, I was just discussing my financial stress, and I just found that $5 bill right there. So that's cool. So yeah, I was attacked by surprise. I survived a vicious surprise attack. I moved I thought I moved in 2016, but it ends up I moved in 2015. I used to live in that moldy underground place. It was very small place, it's a small place, very small, very tiny. I didn't even have a bathtub. I'm thankful I have one where I live now. And I moved, I was depressed, I was suicidal, and I crossed Canada coast to coast, I crossed Canada coast to coast. That event made me come out of being depressed and suicidal, So yeah, I was depressed, suicidal, and I got out of that depression. I got out of it in 2017, so I'm celebrating that event where crossing Canada coast to coast made me establish that strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians who I consider families, and my brothers and sisters in the 50 states, because it's always for the 63. And I'm a mystic as well as an artist, athlete, philosopher, independent geopolitical theoretical analyst, theorist, thinker, and strategist. And just like George Patton, I believe in reincarnation. Just read Through a Glass Darkly. One of my favorite poems is George Patton's Through a Glass Darkly. And I lived in many past lives in the USA, but in my many past lives incarnations, sometimes I was born a man, a woman, a man, a woman, a woman, a man, a woman, a man, a woman, man, a woman, man, a woman, woman, man, nice blue, 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 blue. Man, a woman, woman, man. You get that 50-50 now. I am androgynous, pansexual, not just neurodivergent, but also part of the LGBTQ community. So that is just something where we have, of course, to be in all this situational awareness, of course, where we are to transact and to get it on that go and to get it on the remission, of course, of the side, of course, to be on that left, right, and Z. And that is just the appellation of the integration of aspects of my neurodivergence with all you neurotypicals, and we have to build those bridges, because I don't have antagonistic, resentful feelings towards you, the majority of the population who are neurotypicals, and I just have to live with this aspiness. And being an Asperger's is not bad, evil, negative, malicious. That's where I have to draw the line. And yeah, it has its challenges, and myself, I'm part of the 50% unofficially diagnosed, although I was diagnosed about 9 years ago, starting 9 years ago, continuously by several individuals and citizens I've experienced in the healthcare system and working with autistics and people on the spectrum, autism spectrum, and Aspies, and of course had it on that general idea, of course, where we are, the dynamics, of course, where we got to get it doing. So of course that is something where we have to appellate on the domain, So now we're gonna turn our heads left or right. here because we have to cross the street prudently, and that is just, of course, the situational aspects where we're gonna be on that compromitted aspect of all the life affirming values. So that is just aspiness. And of course the aspi categorization of the Asperger's is of course that we are different, or we are neurodivergent, and that of course difference and neurodivergence makes us a bit awkward, weird and strange in the social manners, of course, where we are that appellation. And I kind of love these, are kind of nice. So of course having Asperger's is of course something where we got that idea, which has to start, or not the idea, but the reality that Asperger's is not a disease. Being an Aspi is not being ill, is not being ill, right? It's not a mental illness, it's not an illness, and the causes are inconclusive. Some say genetic, factorial, multifactorial, genetic by hereditary, or some, of course, you say, of course, the different ways, the genetic factors or the hereditary factors, right? Hereditary or genetic factors, hereditary or genetic factors, right? Or a combination, but it's inconclusive what causes, and you cannot medicate Asperger's. You cannot medicate Asperger's, right? It cannot be medicated. One Aspi, like myself, an individual sovereign citizen with this neurological mental divergent condition, can only work on the characteristics. I don't use symptoms. I use characteristics and traits. And yes, I gotta give a thank you to my anonymous friend for the books. 2 books were gifted on autism, and they have some chapters integrated on Asperger's, because they merged in 2013 with Asperger's and HFA, high functioning autism, which is the same as Asperger's, merged into the spectrum of autism, autistic spectrum, right on the spectrum. So, but the one specific book, which was loaned 4 times, because it was a library loan, was loaned 4 times, because it was a library loan, of course it was loaned 4 times. That specific book is called Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome. And of course, Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome is a book that I totally recommend. Appreciating Asperger's Syndrome is a great book relating for non-Aspies and neurotypicals vis-a-vis us. Aspies for neurodivergence, and we have to build, of course, those bridges. What are small bridges, medium-sized bridges, large bridges, or extra large? These 4 categories of bridge sizes, the size, just like when you order coffee or fries, you might order small, medium, large, or extra large. One of those 4 categories, of course, you can order one of those 4 categories. So whether you order, of course, in those 4 categories, of course, interjectionally, look at that, beautiful, how it's going up like that, see? And here's the snake, like a coiled cobra in it, see? The head of the snake there. That's the head of the snake. They didn't cut it off, so they went inside. And that is, of course, something which we got appellate, of course, to be in the dynamics where we are compromittally, of course, to be now in the situational awareness and all the dynamics where we are now. So, that being said and stated, there's hope, because we have to build bridges. But again, we have some issues. Yes, we're different, but not evil, bad, negative, malicious. And these differences, we can there could be reconciliation. Because like I said, I don't have antagonistic, those are nice also, antagonistic feelings or emotions vis-a-vis you. Yes, I suffered, struggled, I lost friends. Because Aspies, we have trouble keeping friends long term. Usually Aspies don't have a lot of friends, Employment is a difficulty, not necessarily getting it, but keeping a long term. The for Aspies, my tiny community, and again, only half are diagnosed, and half of the diagnosed constitute 0.44%, so it's not even 1% of the population. So in reality, there's about 0.88%, but even then, it's less than 1% of the population. But when it comes to the unemployment percentage rates, it's 80% or even more for Aspies. We lose jobs. It's a problem keeping them because we're different. So we block at certain things, such as gossip, such as, small talk can be difficult. We can have trouble interpreting social cues, the way we can cut people off, not because we want to, but it's how we communicate. It's not because we want to, It's not because we want to. It's because we are different. So we don't mean to offend. Sometimes we're direct, straightforward, and we don't mean to offend, right? We don't mean to offend. It's just sometimes we're direct and straightforward, and that can cause certain people can feel like abrasive, that's abrasive in a way, you know, but it's not because we mean to. It's just because our brain is different. So that's just who we are. And high depression and suicidal rates. And the fourth problem, because it's these main four problems, high dropout rates, high school, very high dropout rates for high school dropout rates from high school. And higher universities, college and university, it's way higher than it's like, I think 7 times higher than the neurotypical, or even more. So 7 times or something like that higher the dropout rates from high school and higher learning education, college, university. 9 times higher the depression and suicidal rates and tendencies, and 11 times higher the unemployment rate. So you realize how much work there is. There has been a lot of work being done. I wish I could get my anonymous friend that house right there, Melrose and Ramsey, Ramezay, and beautiful red, red, my favorite color, 2 layers, beautiful house. This one we could split 50-50, but for her, the house that I filmed the other day, last week when I went by the river, which has that weeping willow. It has a weeping willow tree, weeping willow tree, and it's right by the river. I guess that would be nice for my anonymous. I would have gotten it because it was for sale. If I would have been a billionaire, I would have gotten her that house right away. But I'm financially struggling, but I got saved by the goddess, and I got those trillions of kisses from the goddess, and I have the dream, you know, the dancing goddess in the Dragon Kingdom, the dream for the North American Collective, of course, to implement, and of course to clean the environment for the North American Collective. And it takes individual action for the environment as well, you know, because it's okay for theory and blah blah blah, but sometimes you gotta put on that brains and muscle, just like I was discussing earlier, you know, the fact that civilization is a privilege. What a beautiful pink and white. Wow, this is totally gorgeous. So nice. I love it. That's a good 8+. Don't you love it? That garden is so nice. Oh, somebody's getting ready for Halloween. I gotta go check it out, but I gotta cross the street prudently, so let's go left and right. Go fast. Gotta check this one out. Well, that's so cool. Halloween. Oh yeah, getting ready for the Halloween. I like the colorful Halloween, like this one, red, and these colorful ones. I like these ones, are nice. Very colorful, you know. The dark with the teeth, vampire, Dracula, because it got that red and teeth. But it's kind of cool with the colors nonetheless. And here we got some of that green. Hey, that's really cool. First, today's September 17th, so I guess it's coming, eh? Well, 40, almost 45 days from now. Almost 45. So it's coming, eh? Almost 45 days, it's Halloween, and that's my deadline to propose again. My anonymous friend. And but maybe I'm gonna propose on Halloween day, and to retrieve the archives from. I want to see when was it that I survived that vicious surprise attack years and years ago, and was bloodied up and hit my head, and I had a dislocated right arm. I went to the Jewish General Hospital, so I gotta go to the Jewish General Hospital for our archives. What matters most, I guess, most of my life and my work begins really, I guess, after I moved, because I lived here on the island of Montreal in a very moldy, small, it was like a prison cell. So I guess I served my time, and maybe I saved some other people by getting saved myself by the goddess. I credited my survival to the GODDSS, goddess of millions of names. Doesn't need me to build her a temple, although I will to build the forgotten goddess temple. She doesn't really need, but kind of interestingly enough, that kind of looks like a map. Which country? Anyway, so, and my life really began several times. I guess on my fourth one now, on my fourth in the past 11 years and some months. So I got that rah prior to. Who was I prior to? What was I doing? Prior to February 2014, it remains a mystery. I have a high school diploma from Canada, so I graduated high school in Canada. I don't have a birth certificate. So was I born underneath the Pentagon in Washington D.C.? Was I born in Montreal on the island of the Hawk? I'm definitely reborn here. I died here. I'm reborn, and bury me at the top of the mountain and the city of the pyramids every 11 years to be rotated, and Hampton, New Jersey, with Papa Crowley, Alistair Crowley, full prophet, and of course to be grateful now. And maybe I was born in Transylvania, or in Haifa, or Cairo, the city of the pyramids. I died here, I'm being reborn here, but still gonna do a big cleaning, see if I can find other. I have journals. I have some journals that I kept from my life prior to 2014, and that is just something what we have now, to be in the operational transactions where we are now, to live for the day. Because when I got hit by COVID in February 20, I thought I was gonna die. I really died in COVID. February 20, March, it was like death, pestilence, and disease. So I said, hey, what's this? I said, I'm dying. I thought it was it for me, and I survived. I survived COVID. I got triple vaxxed and 3 vaccines, and I urge you all to keep the protocols hygienic protocols of COVID. The protocols of COVID are hygiene, Just keep them to the best of your extent, and I guess financially there's some difficulties for some, to just buy the disinfectant, but it's soap and water and soap. That's always something which can be done to clean, rub those hands. So finalizing on Asperger's, it is a neurological mental divergent condition. It's not evil, bad, negative, malicious, and it has its difficulties. The 4 main problems are high dropout rates from high school and higher education, college and universities. It's very high for Aspies, the dropout rates, although I have a high school diploma myself. The high suicidal and depression rates, it's very high. The unemployment is very high. 80% unemployment is super high. And lack of friends. For that, I have the solution. Don't waste my time, I won't waste yours. Friends with benefits only. So if you're black, you're white. I am androgynous pansexual. So friends with benefits only. And I always wonder, how did they build that beautiful structure? When was it built? I'm not sure when, but it's very architecturally. Something I like about it. Maybe the mathematical symmetries, although it's kind of disconjointed geometrically, but I kind of like it about it. A little bit of that rock and roll. So that is something which I have to be, of course, the situational aspects where we are now, to be concomitant to all the dimensions of the interpolations of our life affirming actions and living for the day, but with hope for tomorrow. So friends with benefits only, that's my solution. Aspies, we tend to lose friends a lot, and high unemployment. I had many jobs myself. Even during COVID, I just lost them after 4 months, 3 months, a few weeks. It's losing jobs, losing employment. But look at that beautiful sky. Isn't that just majestic? What a beautiful sky. So beautiful, so beautiful. Just a beautiful sky, that is just so majestic, and that is just so rock and roll with that. And you got a beautiful, they're changing, hey, leaves, they're changing, so that is just where they're changing, so that's nice. I guess I changed myself so many times during these past 11 years, although like Aspies, we have our routines, we have these ritual-like routines, and those ritual-like routines can preoccupy most of our daily activities. They're usually revolved around our special interests, also known as obsessive interests, but I use the word special interest. And these special interests for Aspies can provide lots of joy, lots of comfort, and Aspies can excel. But hey, not all Aspies are good in computers and computer science, okay? It's 20%, a little bit more than 20%, which is 1 out of 5, which is, yes, way higher than about the 4% of the regular neurotypical population. It's a bit higher, but again, it's not all Aspies. 20% is relatively higher, I agree, yes, but it's not all Aspies who are good in computer science. My special interests are geopolitics, sports, fitness, rock and roll, and that's where I pretty much excel at. Sports and fitness. I created my own workout training program system, and rock and roll and geopolitics, and now we're going to traverse, and we're going to, of course, do a deep geopolitical analysis. We're going to geopolitic it, and geopolitics it is from now on, and we're going to traverse, because here's a bit noisy, and that's what we're going to do. That's where we're going to dance, and a geopolitical dance. So, doing the geopolitical dance, doing the geopolitical dance. We're gonna of course comment in the situational awareness that the commencement is something which we're gonna do together. So it's something which I gotta be saying like that, and that is something which we gotta get doing like that. And that is all the crossing of the streets, of course. Now it's something which you have, of course, the proposition, to be doing now. That's something which we got, and to do. So that is something which we got to be doing. So there we go, of course, in the interjection, and we look at that beautiful sky. Isn't it just gorgeous? Isn't it just super nice? What a beauty, what a beauty, what a beauty. Of course, that is, of course, the simultaneous preposition where we are now, and of course the dynamics of these beautiful club flowers in the corner as well. So now you gotta leave the baggage at the door. We're entering my kingdom, my domain, to check out that beautiful sky, which geopolitics, and So we're gonna go back in time a bit to 2019. October 2019 to be specific and exact. I predicted what's happening now. In October 2019, I predicted what's happening now. In October 2019, I predicted what's happening now. Generally, you heard that correct, and I even have proof, because I have the video online where I discuss it. The coming World War III, international conflagration, and I even created and produced a workout training program system designed, made, and created to go hand in hand with a World War III scenario, right? With a World War III scenario. So having created that, officially titled the General War Integrated Whole Body Training System, aka the 300 workout, aka the Draconis workout, that's what I gotta say. That was my creation, which I take great pride in, and I have myself, of course, successfully completed more than 372 sessions of that same workout training program system that I've just mentioned. So in October 2019, I did an intense geopolitical analysis, as I do it for years and years and years on a daily basis. Sometimes I just do hours and hours and hours a day, and sometimes that's just what I do in the geopolitics pretty much 24/7. At night, during the day, when I go back, it's a constant. It's my special interest, and I excel at that. And my theories, I believe, I just know them to be very timely for where we are today and where we're headed tomorrow, especially as it concerns the DMAA theory, the direct military assistance or action or assistance, or the DMAA, which I discussed, and I will of course discuss again. So of course, that is just the side of the situation where we are now, of course, to be in all the appellational dominion where we are now, to be involved in all the life-affirming resolutions that, in order to advance further as a North American collective, which we are, a North American civilizational collective, which is not divorced, but we are distinct from Western civilization. So distinct but not divorced, right? Distinct but not divorced. So those are two which you have to keep in mind. Divorced, not divorced, we're distinct, Not divorced, we're distinct. So we're not divorced from Western civilization, but we are distinct. And these distinct features are that we are a new emergent civilizational collective. So we're a new emergent civilizational collective which is not totally divorced, but is distinct from Western civilization. There's a complexity to it. I discussed it years and years and years ago when I introduced it, as much of my theories, philosophy, such as, of course, my thesis, The Privilege of Civilization, which I presented to the world and back in 2023, called The Privilege of Civilization, which has, of course, a lot of geopolitics in, but now we're going to stick to geopolitics. So geopolitics, of course, a whole universe. Even it could be these cars, the fact that they're paying more for gas, there's some geopolitics in that. What is the geopolitics in that? Is that the price of gas is still pretty much dominated by OPEC, Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. OPEC is some designated as a cartel. It certainly has a monopoly. But keeping that in mind, of course, that of course it's a manifestation of the fact that OPEC has, of course, the interjection of the OPEC, being that it is resolutely, of course, a monopoly. But paradoxically, yes, in Canada we have the tar sands, which supposedly have so much quantity of oil. There's so much quantity of oil which the tar sands have, that in theory we are number one, but we cannot extract it without too much cost. It has gotten better and better and better, and for the environment, so there's a high financial cost for extraction and environmental cost. The problem with the, see, now we're atop the mountain, Mount Royal, the three-peak mountain right at the center of the island, and that you can see over there, you can see the island of the Hawk. And as we approach the mountain, as we go up, get a little bit of that mane, and we're gonna let the mane out, because that's what we gonna go do. Let's see, something's blocked here. I guess it has some blockage, and we're gonna get the mane out. We're gonna let the mane out. So there's several ways by which you can go, of course, atop the mountain. Different ways which you could go atop the mountain, and of course we're gonna go now by this side as we go different sides of the mountain at different parts of the week as we go often. Anybody want to find us that I go up and down these stairs 300 times, 300 times I go up and down these stairs. So my second home, the mistress, always loved to let that mane out a bit, auctioning some hair, auctioning everything that I'm wearing, the underwear, the shoes, don't leave that there, please. Recycle. We got flora, fauna here we're trying to preserve, and I don't like seeing trash or garbage. For years and years in my past videos from, I guess, 7 years ago, you can see me cleaning atop the mountain, and sometimes several times, like 4 or 5 times. Look at these. Let the mane out of my mistress. Look at these beautiful. I just love coming here, I just love coming here. It's just so nice, and I guess some refreshed air and from civilization and nature, and I love both. But I don't like to see this here. Don't. So I come to my second home here, the Mistress Mountain, and I already hear the flora and the fauna, and I already get a fresh of the air taste. So here you can inhale and exhale more profusely, and get it, of course, in the inhalation, and of course to inhale more strongly, is something which we have to do. And you don't have to, but if you're here, I recommend it, out now. Gotta rock and roll for the mistress, and as we go all the way to top N.A.C.W.P and then come back, gonna go back to my headquarters. After that, I don't want to do more than 6 hours today. Yesterday I did more than 5, Tuesday, and Monday I did more than 5. So today's Wednesday, we're gonna keep it at about more than 5, maybe do more than 6 tomorrow, and we're gonna average the 25 per week, which is kind of the minimum required for our marching, dancing workouts. So I have these routines. Aspis, we have these ritual-like routines, and I don't mind change, especially when it comes to financial economics, but economic-wise, money-wise, that's my only stress now. But here, to come to the mountain, it doesn't cost. Yes, it costs some sweat, some will, and maybe some soreness if you do decide to come, because you can get sore, from marching and coming in the wilderness from in the midst of the metropolis, Montreal Island. You have this beautiful mountain, three-peak mountain right between the east and the west, interestingly enough, right between the east and the west, but south. So it's not exactly between the north and the south, but it is south, but it is between the east and the west, quite in the heart of the island, Montreal, H-A-W-K island of the Hawk. So leave the package at the door. We're gonna go into geopolitics now. So I predicted what's happening now. Back in 2019, in October 2019, I predicted what's happening now in 2019, October. So being that I am an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst, theorist, thinker and strategist, my strategies are mostly for the 63, the 10 provinces, 50 states and 3 territories. Always for the 63. I'm for NORAD. Well, NORAD is North America. I'm for NATO, you know. And that is something which you have to watch. Of course, the street here, that is something where we gotta watch it, and we gotta get it for the left and the right, and make sure, of course, we wait for the bikes. Sometimes the bikes, of course, come fast, and we gotta get it on that, and that is something which we have to do on that situational aspect, to do and not to do, and to be incurmissive to the situational awareness of where we are now, and that is something which we gotta be doing, you know? Yeah. So I love coming here, and I love being you kind of get the illusions broken, especially at night. Usually I come in, now it's getting darker, but it's something which I also have the, I guess, privilege, So, and it's a mutual privilege. It requires that we don't pollute, That we don't pollute. It requires that we are careful with the branches. Sometimes the trees are not that healthy, so we gotta watch for the rocks as well, you know. We gotta watch for the rocks as well. So the rocks sometimes gotta get on that goal like that, so because we're going steep up. So my prediction of 2019 has proven correct, and it's unfolding in a general matter, not an overall manner, not every detail with every detail, but generally it's unfolded such as I have predicted it. Such as I predicted it. Such as I predicted it. Generally, overall, that's what I predicted. And one of my main predictions or motives, why that is, that we're headed towards the World War III, an international conflagration, was that there were so many unresolved conflicts from the Cold War period, the 20th century, which I specialize in as a geopolitical theorist, theoretical philosopher, that those conflicts are going to restart and reemerge. That those conflicts are going to start and reemerge. And the Cold War lasted, of course, between like March 1947 and 1991. So some put it, of course, for more than 44 years. I put it about almost 45 years. So I put it as almost 45 years, you know? Almost 45 years. That I put the duration of the Cold War at almost 45 years. Some say 46 or more. I don't mind augmenting or increasing the duration of the Cold War. Let's just say it's been between about 45 years, almost 45 years. I don't mind going to 46. However, I say that it's between March 1947 and end of December 26, 1991. So almost 45 years for me. But I don't mind saying it more, because some say it's between 1945 and 1991. So it varies. It varies, of course. 1941. Some say 1945 and 1946 and 1991. So it varies, right? Well, I say almost 45. So that those conflicts were not, of course, resoluted. Were not, of course, finalized. Did not have a resolution. You know, they were not finalized. The conflicts were not, and they restarted. Look at Russia-Ukraine. Russia-Ukraine is a conflict which has its dates from the Second World War, really from the Cold War, from the 20th century. And of course it dates from the 20th century. And of course the other war Israel Hamas is again, Hamas was founded in the 80s. It took them 2 decades, 20 years to reach and attain power over Gaza. In June 2007, July 2007, they took military political control of Gaza, the Gaza Strip. Right? Interesting enough, before October 7th, I was advocating for both Israel and Mexico simultaneously to become member countries of NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization countries. Now we're gonna see what's happening with their post-October 7th and what's happening with Gaza and the war. And of course, the recent strike in Qatar was kind of pretty hardcore, to say it in a rock and roll manner, event, and such a conflict which has reignited, which was now resolved, and with everything that's going on now, it's quite a hell of a response, I guess, or a hell of a retribution. I'm not going to discuss that specific conflict and war at the moment, but nonetheless, it dates from the 20th century, right? I always say in the North American Collective, we've been able, of course, to find and attain, of course, the civilizational conflict, the compromise, right? The compromise of the French language, of course, to be able to do it continuously, and of course to do it continuously, that we have the continuance of peace and harmony in the North American Collective, as it relates, of course, to our continuing domain of the civilizational collective where we are now inside September 2025. So my prediction proved to be correct in a general manner back in 2019. And just to discuss a little bit of my workout, which I created, it requires no equipment. It is a simple, effective, efficient workout training program system that requires no equipment. It requires no equipment. The rules are simple, effective. There are 4 main rules if you are to think about it. One is allocated 93 minutes, 44 seconds, and 9/11ths of a second. Specifically, that fraction of a second is 9/11 due to the 9/11 attack, of course. And the NATO's Article 5, just to interject, was only invoked once, during the 9/11 attacks. Only once. It has never been invoked afterwards. And it's going to tie in with the DMAA, which I'm going to discuss afterwards. So, of course, all that theoretical framework, of course, where we are now, to be, of course, situationally aware of all the dynamics where we are now, to be on the go, and, of course, to be involved with where we are now. It is, of course, the situation is deteriorating, right? So I have to restate that I did predict what's happening now globally, worldwide, but I did not predict that our relations as Canadians, as Canada, the deterioration of relations with the United States, which is deeply alarming, I did not predict. And I always get goosebumps when I discuss this. My brothers and sisters, fellow Canadians, that since August 1st, by the Trump administrations, we are designated as an unusual, an extraordinary threat to the American people, and that was the motive, the reason of the increase of tariffs on Canada. And let's face it, 75% of our tariffs, or correction, of our goods, of our exports, 75% they go to the United States. 75% they go to the United States. 3/4. Europe is not going to be able to absorb maybe 5-10% because they're dealing with their own problems. German, the economic engine of the European Union, is dealing with their own problems. So Uncle Carney and all Canadians and all my brothers in the USA, where I was born 3 times in past lives and served in the United States Armed Forces, read George Patton, 3 Glass Darkly, our main interest, geopolitical interest, is to have the best, most cordial relations with each other. That is a constant. Just like the pi symbol. The pi symbol is a relation between the circumference of the circle, the circumference of the circle. The circumference of the circle. The circumference of the circle. The diameter and the circumference of the circle is always the number pi. It's not a pi, edible pi, but it's a symbol. It's 3.1415. So it's always that measurement. It's a constant mathematical. It's the letter N with 2 heads. The 2 heads kind of look different. 2-headed, 2-faced. Kind of 2 heads, 2 faces. 2 heads, 2 faces. 2 heads, 2 faces. One head looks like a hawk, H-A-W-K, and one like a donkey, animal, of the earth, hyena, dog, or artwork or something like that. Antelope, it's kind of unidentifiable. But that N has two heads, two faces. That's why coming Imperium Democratic Republic of the 63 is gonna have, of course, that two-faced, two-headed in the concomitant aspects where we're gonna be, of course, all the civilization aspects where we are now interjected. So back to my workout is a simple, effective workout training program system which I created back in 2019. You can check hundreds of videos. Hundreds of videos I posted online. I performed more than 372 sessions of that same workout training program system, which of course I have, of course, created myself in the incremental appellation, of course, of all the domain names where we are now in the plurality of the situational awareness when I get on that go, you know, and when I get on that right rock and roll, and that's what we're gonna get doing for that dynamic to be, of course, interjected. And that's a workout training program system which I've been advocating for its implementation across the armed forces, across the NATO NORAD complex, from high school, from universities, from, of course, all, of course, the appellation where we are now, to be, of course, concomitant about all the aspects and the domains where we are now. So we have, of course, to be in the situational aspects where we get, you know. Yeah, so all of that situational aspects is, of course, that I created the workout training program system where we are now, of course, to be in the concomitant aspect of the plurality, of course, where we are now. The dominion of our coming empire will be just like that end with two heads, two faces, one benevolent goodness and kindness, and the other one will be, of course, to be, of course, punishing, and gonna be on that punishing side of the aspect of the life affirming situations where we are now concomitant to discuss my workout, which has 4 main rules. You got to do 100 push-ups, 100 squats, 100 push-ups, hawk squats, 100 for each. You can do 13 maximum, 3 minimum. You cannot do more than 13. You gotta, once you start the countdown, 93 minutes, you gotta keep it in motion by marching, of course, by marching, jogging, and that is something what you gotta get doing with that and doing on the go now, you know, to getting on the XYZ situational aspects of all the characteristics where we are now concomitant to the SYZ appellations where we got the domain name and going on these. So the name of the workout is officially the General War Integrated Total Body Training System. Of course, it's called also the General War Integrated Total Body Training System, but it's also the Draconis, of course, workout. The Draconis workout, which of course has to be concomitant where we are now. Of course, you know, the society where we are now, to be left or right or in the middle. That workout training program system is something which, of course, is not categorically to be, that it has to be categorically implemented for our armed forces, for the NATO armed forces, you know, for the NATO armed forces. So every time, of course, for the NATO armed forces, and in high school, and of course all the high school that we have, of course, to be now, here we are, of all the situational aspects where we made it at the top of the mountain. We're just gonna go say hello, hydrate, and then we're gonna go say hello to the other pyramid and come back in. And that is something which we gotta get doing, right? To do it now, you know, for the situational aspects where we are concomitantly now to get doing on the drill. So here we are atop the mountain where we are now to be doing all the aspects of the involvement where we are now, to the left and the right and the XYZ situational aspects of all the situational characteristics where we made it to the top, of course, to the XYZ, and that is just something where we have to be doing now, you know. So that is something where we got, look at that, that is something which you gotta be doing on that go, you know. That's what we gotta get doing on that. So gotta get on that hydration, and we gotta get on that XYZ, and saluting those who build all this. Imagine all the brains and muscle, how much, of course, it took, of course, for us to build that civilizational complex, and of course to do now, for us to have the drinking water, and of course to drink water here, to get it on the go now. And that is something which we have to be doing now, and that's what we have to be doing on the go, and that is something which we gotta get now. Gotta do something when we got. Made it to the top here on the aspects where we are now, to be on the beautiful and oh, they got the message, eh? Ils ont compris, je pense. Look at that. That's the pyramid, man. That's the pyramid. Firefighters, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, plumbers, LOVE. Construction workers, butchers, bakers, truckers, firefighters, electricians, those bakers, truckers on the road. Firefighters, bakers, LOV, firefighters, the bakers, the nurses. Somebody gotta sing that rock and roll. I got that. There's some rock and roll for you. Look at that.
Mais non, pas les filtres. Pas les filtres, tu
sais, je sais quoi faire. Juste laisse-moi le téléphone.
Stretch a little bit. So, the satellites are always trajectory. The satellites, now there's a constellation of satellites above about 500. I'm not talking to you. There's a 500 kilometers. 500 kilometers above the sky. So these sats always are in motion. So you can't really see them. Sometimes you see them sparks. So they were launched in mode. So now they're in motion. So all the telecommunications with the satellites, where beam, everything is recorded. So the sats are now projecting from above, right? And all the texts that we send, our satellites, they capture it from above, right? So these sats are always in motion. So they're always captivating from 500 kilometers from the sky. 24/7. That's amazing, isn't it? There's about 5,000 sats. Production from Space Force. So they're always traveling, 5,000 sats. So they're always captivating. They can zoom in here. So they can actually have the capability to zoom in here from the sky. And all the motion, even what you have in the pockets. And this was from the 90s. Welcome to the New World Order, baby. So that's why we gotta build some more for total security, total service, total defense. We need it. We need mass investment at the global hawk to defend the sky. And we need to build double the satellites and totally integrate in the security, service, and defense plateau. But I saw some lights. So I think those were sats. So always when I come here, I motivate, because in the year of darkness, parallel self, that's what I built. So my parallel self builds these satellites. So of course, they can zoom in, right? They can zoom in. They can zoom in. Right, so that's from the 90s. And in a parallel life, myself, I built that in the year of darkness, 2029. So that's always an amazing situational aspects. As an amazing situational aspects. So that is the beauty of the satellites and their high technological capabilities. And that's why we need to build more for total security, total service, total defense for Canada and United States. As we're gonna fuse, I'm all excited, all smiling, because I connect with my parallel self in November 15th, the year of darkness 2029. And I built, that's what I do there. I build the sats. Well, not just myself, but with others. Just like sats were built for decades ago. But those satellites, they can zoom in, hey, and actually see and monitor all the cities, right? To the detail of zooming in right on me now, which of course is super cool. Because paradoxically, we need this security, service, and defense where we are now. We need this security, service, and defense where we are now, right? So that's why my theories and protocols for total SSD, the new Dragon 911 protocols for total security, service, and defense, they have to be implemented, right? They have to be implemented. So their implementation has to be concomitant to all the civilizational aspects where we are now. So all the civilizational aspects of being that we're a new civilizational aspect, we have to implement and we have to strategize to build more sats interconnected, and that citizens can go see what these satellites monitor, all the highways, all the public domain, in the public domain, and to be open source to a certain degree, right? Because we need to replace, because now we have the problem that 12,000 cameras are from China, are monitoring, and supposedly there is some security risk from China. So now I go to some solutions, of course, intermediate of all the situational aspects where we are, and every time not every time, but most of the time now, because I saw some sparks, I believe I saw 4 sats passing in the, they're high up and are miles and kilometers away, right, in the sky, 500 kilometers above altitude. So I believe I kind of saw 4 flashes. That's why I started discussing sats and their capabilities of some of these satellites, which we need to build more for total Canadian United States in the Imperial satellite production, to build, of course, to monitor 24/7 the streets, the highways, and the public sphere. The public sphere, of course, not inside the apartments and the public, of course, but outside, in the public, for public security, public safety, public, of course, public security and safety. We need to build more sats. So me and that parallel self, I discuss it for more than 4 years now. That's what I do. I build sats, supercomputers, microchips, gadgets in my parallel self. So that's why I got excited there, because I saw 4 sats, and now my brain is just calculating the altitude, the projection, and all the components of a satellite, which is of course in geosynchronous orbit. So I'm just going to stop on sats now, because I'm not an expert on sats. I'm a geopolitics, but of course to have the total BDD, benevolent dominance dominion, it of course takes that, of course we have, of course, to build the satellite production where we are now. And of course this satellite production is something where we have to be doing, of course, to be doing more satellite production and total new satellite production of the 21st century for our empire of the 63 coming that it be. So now I'm going to discuss my workout. You can check hundreds of videos of my own workout training program system, which I created. More than 372 sessions I, of course, perform myself. And that is, of course, the performance of them. And here I also love to come show off a bit of my city for the firefighters, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, electricians, plumbers, and that skyscrapers there, rock and roll for the construction workers, and for the bridge there who built it, and of course all the firefighters, the public workers, the truckers, the electricians, the engineers, all those, of course, involved in the production, distribution of food. And what I saw was 1, 2, 3, 4 like flashes high above the sky when I looked up, and of course above the horizon, right? So I believe that was, I don't know if the camera captivated it, but I believe those were satellites. So that's what I believe, that they were part of the satellite constellations, of course, where we got thousands of sats, and of course we need to build more. I've been discussing this need for years and years now to build more sats. We're interconnected via my theories, the CIT, and we have mass places across Montreal and across all the 63, across the big cities, where citizens can go in those big buildings and monitor what the satellites see, the satellite feed, 24/7 satellite feeds, and monitor our public spaces, our highways, our cities, the streets of our cities with webcams interconnected. So it's citizen integration theory that has to be applied, and we need to build more of these SATs because now we have the capabilities, and we kind of had it since the 80s, 90s, where we can zoom in, right? So there at the top of, or down below, we can zoom in on the car, on our citizens, and even to a certain extent where certain satellites have the capability to see what's in the pocket from above, like, so it's a bit, if you see the movie, kind of, it's realistic. For now, it's even more realistic. Enemy of the state, enemy of the state, enemy of the state, enemy of the state is a good movie for you to see. So those are just the gadgets which we have, of course, these gadgets to play with, and those are just the gadgets which we have now to be intercommittent, of course, to be on the XYZ situational awareness, to be now. So that is something which we gotta be now manifesting, as of course, as a public-private partnership and all the concomitantly of advancements of these SATs, which we need to build more. So thousands are already up there, and of course we have to build the golden dome, which needs to be put a hawk in it. So here I am at top of my second home, the mountain, and here now we're gonna discuss the DMAA, and then we're gonna get into the other theories, the DRT. So yeah, go SATs go, it's kind of love, and then paradoxically we need them, for security. We need them now even more than ever. Now even more than ever we need those SATs, capability of the SATs. So that is something which we need to do, for the public. And that's just something which we need to do for the public now. For public security, total police state security. We have to, but it has to be citizen integrated, right? Because citizens have to have a certain access to the feeds, and where we have these centers. My vision is where we have these centers where citizens go and they monitor. Citizens go and they monitor, They monitor, of course, the thread. What's monitored is, of course, the monitoring, of course, of the citizens. The monitoring, of course, of the citizens. So that monitoring of the citizens is, of course, also integrated with citizens, that we build these mass places where people can see. And of course, for total SSD, via my new Dragon 911 total integrated security service and defense complex for the 63, and for NATO, we gotta build those, and we gotta, of course, implement the DRT, the debt refusion theory, we're gonna build on that DRT, the debt refusion theory, of course, to be on that XYZ, and that's what we're gonna be doing on that XYZ, and that's how we're gonna get on that loving aspect of the things, where we got, of course, to get around those domains names, to get it on that left or right, and getting on those Hawk Island. We need to build it in Montreal as a bi-national, parallel twin, Pentagon, Hawk Island, Montreal, as a twin to the military industrial complex, which we're gonna do double here in Montreal, and we're gonna citizen integrate in the military industrial, total security, total defense, total SSD. We're gonna incorporate the total SSD principles by which I operate for my formulations of the Imperial Republic, the total security, service and defense theory, the pro-labor and love universal revolutionary centrist, the pro-labor universal revolutionary centrist. That is something which we're gonna have, of course, to compromisely be about, and we're gonna get all that domain, of course, name, where we're gonna give, of course, that confluence, of course, where we're gonna, of course, incorporate my debt refusion theory and all the other theories. We're now gonna discuss the DMAA, a direct military assistance in action. The direct military assistance in action is the total formulation where we have now the total formulation for the DMAA. A direct military assistance in action is, of course, as it relates to NATO, the NATO complex. And of course, this NATO complex, of course, is the formulation of this North Atlantic community, which we have, of course, since 1949, and of course it relates to military, because my anonymous friend, we had a discussion, but of course that discussion was concomitant only, of course, to the appellation, where, of course, the investment and the discussion which we had was a mutually beneficial one. And I learned that to discuss this theory, which is my theory, it's not just a theory, it's a philosophy, it's a frame of reference, and the working protocol which has to be animus in consuelo liber. That's the motto of NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization member states, which we have in this organization for more than 75 years. It has to be totally understood in the plateau and in integrity of the plateau and integrally in it, that of course it is a working tool as a frame of reference, which has to be put as a working protocol for the NATO alliance, which is the security collective alliance, which lasted for more than 75 years, since about 1949 April. So that is of course the dictum where we are, of course, with the dictum, of course, where the civilizational prudence where we are now of the dictum, to get it on the go and to get it on the left, right, Z, of course, in this civilizational context where we are today, that all this working tool of the DMAA is a jewel, actually, paradoxically. So I'm just going to stretch a bit and just going to discuss the DMAA. So of course, that is the DMAA, the AA, the direct military assistance or action. Again, it has nothing to do with humanitarian aid. So it's totally devoid of considerations of a humanitarian aid nature. It's strictly military. It's a working tool. It's a theory for NATO. So we have to implement it because the DMAA has consequences. The direct military assistance or action has certain consequences. And of course, those consequences of the DMAA, direct military assistance and action, has consequences. So these consequences are of course officiated to be in the propositions where we are now, that it has, in the parentheses, has a C. And the C, of course, in consequence is something that we have, of course, to be concomitantly to do on that go. So it has the DMAA, direct military assistance and action. So this DMAA, direct military assistance and action, has to be totally understood that from the point of view of a working tool, it is something which we have to incorporate as a protocol for NATO starting now, right? Because it has certain consequences. Maybe some of those consequences are that transnational criminal syndicate organized groups have been financed by foreign actors, foreign groups such as XYZ, let's say Russia or China, because our military assistance to Ukraine and Taiwan, which are not part of NATO. Article 5, which is the collective defense article that states that if one member country of NATO is attacked, then NATO has to respond as a collective force. That means it was only invoked on September 11th. Only once in the 75 years history on September 11th. So the DMAA pays special attention. It's really important. DMAA, assistance or action or assistance. So the DMAA is action or assistance vis-a-vis non-NATO member conflicts. So when two non-NATO member countries are at war, Russia, Ukraine, for example, Israel, Hamas, Israel, Palestine, Israel, another country, it could be Israel, Iran. Because before October 7th, 2023, I was advocating for Israel and Mexico to join simultaneously as the 32nd and 33rd, I called it, Genesis 33 NATO protocol, based on the biblical story of Jacob and Esau kissing and hugging after like a few decades of being apart or something like that, right? So that is just where we are now. So that is, we're gonna see where the finality is, but that was before October 7th, like I said. Now we gotta see what's going on with the resolution, whatever happens in the coming days, weeks, and months ahead as we move towards this plateau of concordance. So now back to the domain of the DMAA. It's a protocol, it's a theory, it's a philosophy, and it's a frame of reference. It's actually a working tool as well. We have to deliberate, just like the motto of NATO states, animus in consuelo liber, which is Latin language of the ancient Roman civilization, culture, empire, kingdom, republic, because it was all of that, ancient Roman civilization. Latin, and the motto of my country, Canada, the motto of the United States, many mottos in the United States, I got it tatted on me, don't ask me when I got it, but it's, you know, E pluribus unum and Ad Mare Masca Ad Mare, and even Montreal, the city of Montreal, is Latin. Concordia Salus, wellness through harmony, and Animus in consuelo liber is for NATO, a mind unfettered in deliberation. So we got to deliberate. DMAA, direct military assistance and action. Direct military assistance and action. The direct military assistance and action. The direct military assistance and action is consequentially the frame of reference from now on, whether we take action or we assist other countries as NATO. organization. So it has to be the highest echelon, even has to be referendum sometimes, a big vote to see. Because, for example, Ukraine, Canada, we got involved. That's direct military assistance, not action. It could be both. Action is when, for example, boots on the ground or planes. For example, Yugoslavia, Libya, Iraq, Syria. Those are NATO planes, NATO member countries, armed air forces bombardment of different countries which are not part of NATO and involved in other conflicts. So it's direct military assistance or action vis-a-vis the conflicts which are non-NATO-esque. It could be in Taiwan if China invades Taiwan, right? It could be in other countries. It could be in so many countries around the world. So that is, of course, all the situational awareness which we are now. So that is something which we have to be transmissive about and incorporate fully in our daily, in our long-term strategy as well. It's also a strategy. So DMAA, whether to take action or assistance vis-a-vis non-NATO member countries from now on, because it has a C, and that C is a potential consequence, such as secret police, covert police, by financing transnational criminal syndicate organized groups, for example in Canada, to flood with fentanyl and produce fentanyl. And now the United States has designated Canada as an unusual and extraordinary threat to the American people, mainly because of the fentanyl. And just last year, the RCMP has been warning us for 10 years. Last year, what happened? The RCMP dismantled the RCMP dismantled the biggest ever drug super lab. What if that was just 1 out of 5? That means there's 4 left. And here when I pass, every time I pass by this big antenna and you see those 3G, 4G, 5Gs and that antennas, that always reminds me, necessarily of course integrity, always get reminded, and always that in a parallel life, in the year darkness, it is the year 2029, it is November 15th, 2029. In the year darkness it is, and I'm a super scientist. I build supercomputers, ICBM rockets, satellites, and all things of radio telecommunications and super satellite connected, just like this one, in order to build them in that parallel self. So that I love this. I just love it. In this life it is, of course, geopolitics, which is my situation. And of course I always meditate on big constructions such as this. So being that it is geopolitics, that is just something which I gotta be meditating on, all the transactions where we are now, to be on the go now. Of course, all the civilizational where we are now, it is something which we have, of course, to be on the circummittant side, of course, of the aspects of all the domain names where we are now, to be plural about and to think about all the strategies which we're going to implement from now on as relates to inaction, necessarily maybe inaction or action vis-a-vis the DMAA, the direct military assistance and action, because it has, like I said, a potential consequence, and that consequence could be the fomenting of citizens outside North America, but not necessarily citizens per se, but countries with powerful financial tools and powerful espionage tools, such as China and Russia and their secret polices, of course, getting hand in hand and financing these transnational criminal syndicate organized groups. And I am myself a pro-labor and love universal revolutionary centrist. My centrism is pro-revolutionary labor, but it's tied hand in hand with what I said. Tied hand in hand with what I said. Tied hand in hand with what I said. That, of course, this resolution is something which it has to be functionality. It's not just, it's intellectual, but this intellectual aspect and this philosophical aspect has to be put into practice, right? Because the practice, from the theory and practice, it has to constitute for now on, from today and for the coming days, weeks and months and years, of course, it has to constitute in the volition that we are as a NATO collective, whether in the future we take action, because it has a certain consequences attached to it, whether we take action or not. So that is something which has to be clear and properly understood fully 100%. So DMAA, direct military assistance and action, again, it has nothing to do with humanitarian aid. It's only military, whether providing. Canada, for example, has provided helmets, tanks, and of course helmets, tanks, and all those good armored vehicles, helmets, tanks, good armored vehicles, has provided them for, of course, munitions and bombs and drones for a military purpose to Ukraine, and that potentially triggered an antagonistic relation from Russia, because it used to kill its forces, its soldiers, is the same. With every conflict, when we take DMAA, when we engage in DMAA, is of course something what we gotta get doing on that drill. So something we have, of course, to be doing on that for the appellation of civilization, where we got to get on that rock and roll for that rock and roll now. So now I'm gonna switch from the DMAA, but keep and meditate upon it. We're gonna come back to it in the coming days, weeks, and months ahead. But every day I'm gonna discuss it a bit. So now we're gonna discuss the DRT, the debt refusion theory. It's super important. And this, what I'm gonna say now is of course in the civilizational aspect, that of course we have of course the protocol to be involved ourselves in the domain, that our interest is reciprocal interest for both Canada and United States, for United States vis-a-vis Canada, for Canada vis-a-vis the United States, in a reciprocal motive, the United States vis-a-vis Canada and the Canada vis-a-vis United States. It is of course in the simultaneous manner that we are involved of course to be translusive, of course in the missive, of course all the missive and the action where we are now, to be involved in all the civilizational pluralities that this DRT, debt refusion theory, has of course to be involved in all the civilizational complexes where we are now. So this element now that I'm gonna say, it's not just an element, it's a reality. It's a foreign affairs reality, it's a geopolitical reality. So that geopolitical reality has to do in foreign affairs that our main interest, it is to have the best, most of course, it is to have the best, most, it is to have the best, most, when it comes to a hierarchy of foreign affairs. So I'm strictly relating to foreign affairs. Nothing to do with, of course, with other things, with foreign affairs, you know. With foreign affairs, principally, of course, our concomitant is something which we have, of course, to get doing on that. So our point of view, or our main interest when it comes to foreign affairs, not domestic affairs, and vice versa, reciprocally, the United States is the same. It is to have the best, most cordial economic, social relations with the United States, social relations with the United States, That is just something which we have. That is just something which we have, of course, to be doing on that. That is just something on the situational awareness where we are to do it now. So keeping in mind that, of course, without being redacted, that is a constant, just like the pi symbol, it has two heads, two faces, of course. That's what we have to be doing now in the concomitant things, of course, where we are in the civilizational aspect, where we gotta get drilling on that, to be doing on that implementation and meditative aspects. And this meditation has to be inside all the geopolitics where we're gonna move from now on, So this movement from now on is going to be, of course, concomitant and realize where we are, of course, the realization of this sphere, of this spherical analysis, where we are, of course, the spherical analysis. And this analysis is, of course, also transponent to these realities where we are now. So these realities are obfuscated by this reality of the transnational evaluation, or the transnational modalities. Now we have, of course, the transnational modalities where we are now, to be intermittent, of course, in the concordiate of saying that yes, it is so, and you cannot negotiate with it. You cannot negotiate with that. You cannot say no. You cannot negotiate it. You cannot negotiate. You cannot say no. You got to say yes. So that is, of course, the plurality, of course, of where we are now, of course, in the middle of this mess where we have such bad relations, which I did not predict. I predicted an international conflagration in World War III, but relations will deteriorate. I'm smiling because I'm joyous myself, and you know, although financially stressed, but I am a bit angry and upset, and you know, I have to discuss it, you know, because our main interest is something which we have to be doing on that, you know, on the go. So that, of course, remission is that we must have the best, most cordial relations with the United States, So that is just the realities. That's just the realities. So that is the realistic aspect of the situation. That is just the situation. And the situation, not just the situation, but it's a reality for us. Just our geography positions it so. But not just the positioning of because of our geography, but our common history and destiny. It is to have the best, most common relations with the United States. That is just what it is. You know, you cannot negotiate with that. For us, our main interest, Quebecers, Canadians, is to have the best, most cordial relations with the United States. And the United States vis-a-vis us It is the same for the United States. Although my brothers and sisters in the 50 states, you have a border with Mexico. You have a border with Mexico. You have a border with Mexico. So that border with Mexico, it is of course the border which one needs to be confluential about, right? Because it is a reality, but it is still the United States vis-a-vis us, which you have to build the best, most cordial economic, social, financial relations. There's just no way out of that, you know. There's just no way out of that. You cannot say no to that. That is just what it is. You cannot say no. You cannot say no. You cannot say maybe. It's just like that pie, with of course it is a constant. It is a constant. So that pie is a constant. It has two heads, two faces. Thus our empire will be two-headed, two-faced. One for goodness and kindness. The other one, of course, will be for benevolence, and the other one for a punishing manner. So now, that is the reality. Uncle Connie, the king is absent. We should have established the republic long ago, at the beginning of the year, 1st of January 1999, 1st of January 1999, the 1st of January 1999, we should have established it, the republic, in concomitant, of course, to all the evaluations where we are now, that the king is absent. And my brothers and sisters, fellow Canadians, Uncle Connie pledged allegiance to the King of England and his heirs. Pledged allegiance to the King of England and his heirs. Imagine that. That should have gone long ago. On the 1st of January 2000, that's the turning of the millennium, that Canada should have been a republic more than 25 years ago. That's just my knowledge. We should have been a republic. We should have got rid a long time ago of the king and the queen and all that. And our fusion with the United States will best my way via the DRT. We have a great geopolitical manner, but I'm no Trump supporter. You know, it's Dragon versus Trump, but I'm a democratic Republican. My democratic Republicanism is pro-labor and love universal revolutionary centrist, and it's 21st century, for the 21st century's technological, social realities and energies of today, you know. So I'm going to discuss the DRT, and the DRT has to be implemented binationally. There's, because of four main problems, and it is part of my bipolar strategy for total world geopolitical BDD, benevolent dominance and dominion, via the fusion of Canada and United States into the Imperial Republican complex of the 63, and of course that is what we have to implement, my DRT theory. It contains monetary integration theory, which is the financial theory, which was implemented in the European Union, which is the implementation which they did in the 90s. The Germans, Germany, Italy, France, Belgium, many countries, they destroyed their national central banks and their national currencies, and they created the ECB as a multinational central bank. They no longer have central banks like we have in Canada, United States, Banco de Mexico, and Israel, and other countries, Bank of China. They don't have central banks, national central banks. They have a multinational central bank, the ECB. So my DRT, the debt refusion theory, contains the financial theory known as the MIT monetary integration theory, which is what was done in Europe in the 90s. So listen close, because it's the solution due to the four main problems which affect the majority of both Canadians and my brothers and sisters in the 50 states, in the United States. And these four main problems are the growing cost of living, the cost of bread is increasing, cost of bacon, cost of cheese, cost of eggs. With that is the cost of rent. Even my rent went up, but it's between $6 and $10. I'm not going to complain on my behalf, because I think it's reasonable due to we have a maximum here by municipal regulations of rent controls, which we have. It's even below what was allowed. So it's between 6 and 10 for me. I'm not going to say exactly the number, but every year has gone up, but it's okay for me. I can't complain. And the stagnation of the salary, the third one is the stagnation of the salaries, right? That's why we have a lot of strikes. Fourth one is the growing credit card debt. Even somebody is swiping the credit card debt now. So these problems press us hard and troublesome, right? So these are due to these four main problems. We have to implement the DRT ASAP for finance, because we're approaching a financial Armageddon, collapse, both Canada and United States, public and private. Most of the citizens are stressed financially now. So we're going to take all the public and the private debt, all the private and the private debt. We're going to take all the private and the private debt, all the public and the private debt, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. We're going to take all the private and the public debt, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. We're going to take all the public and the private debt, my debt, your debt, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. All the public and the private debt. right? All the public and the private debt, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, right? My debt, your debt, their debt, our debt. All the debt, public and private. We're going to convert that public-private debt account. We're going to add it up together, including my 10,000. I don't have credit cards. I have a bank credit line to the RBC. So we're going to take all the public and the private debt. We're going to convert it into US dollars. We're going to add it with the public-private debt of the US, and that's going to be the new money supply with all the money that exists now in circulation to create a new bank, Imperial Republican Central Bank, to issue the new currency based on the value of the US dollar. It could be called the Imperial Dollar, but what is money? It's called by different names, but it is a unit of exchange. So we're going to create the Universal Exchange Unit. The UE, the UE, the UE. The Universal Exchange Unit, the UE. The UE, the Universal Exchange Unit. The UE. The Universal Exchange Unit. U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot UE, which is going to have the value of the US dollar. We're going to set an interest rate level of 10%. It will not be able to be more than 10%. With that money, we're going to rebuild the infrastructure. We're going to finance tourism. We're going to get rid of the border. We're going to fuse the RCMP and FBI. We're going to create the two complementary covenant and cooperative institutions, the Dragon Army, aka Imperial Integrated SSD Legion, and the Dancing Goddess Army, the Integrated Dance League. We're going to create these two complementary covenant and cooperative institutions, the Dragon Army only to serve for SSD. We're going to mass finance the rebuilding of the infrastructure, building more Hydro-Quebec plants. We're going to build those 44 mass tunnel structures, tunnel cities in case of a thermonuclear war. We're going to implement the Criminal Rehabilitation Act, Imperial Criminal Rehabilitation Act for my brothers and sisters who deserve, some of them, second, third, fourth chances. Of course, we've got to discern in that justice, If you have more than 44 criminal conviction, I guess we're going to impartiate Dracula, North American Dracula, Imperial Dracula protocol in parallel. And of course, we're going to build those 44 tunnels. We're going to create this massive 63 legions for total SSD, security, service, and defense based on my philosophy, such as the body is a temple of pleasure and purpose. We're going to rebuild the cities, build social housing, and rehabilitate our homeless population, give them a chance for rehabilitation. It takes a mass public-private partnership with my brother Scorpio Bill Gates, all high-tech, and BlackRock and Blackstone are two financial institutions which split but still work together on some issues post-1989 when they split, and it requires all public and private institutions, whether financial, political, social, economic, social, cultural. We're going to create the Imperial Democratic Republic, Perpetual Union of the 63, mass finance healthcare, mass finance fitness, create my workout credit, some UEs, Universal Exchange Unit is going to be the new currency, or we could call it the Imperial Dollar. The Imperial Dollar. The dollar of our empire. People's Democratic Republican Empire. The Democratic Imperial Republic. The Democratic Imperial Republic by fusing the 10, the 50, and the 3, get rid of the border, do a great census, see who's been living here for the past, let's say since 2014 March, or the past 11 years, 7 years, 5 years, since March 2020 when COVID began, and see if we can give some amnesty, do some work for the 44 tunnels, and do the Imperial, create the Imperial protocols for our empire, for tourism. We're going to establish the tourist plateau. We're going to mass finance citizens to work out. We're going to finance citizens fitness. We're going to mass finance citizens fitness, citizens work out, and citizens to operate, and citizens also tourist activities. So we're going to finance that. Tourism across the 63, mass finance tourism. Every season, spring, autumn, winter, summer, all the 4 seasons, every 3 months. When a citizen is 16 years and plus, we're going to credit 4 days where you can have food, housing, and lodging. You can accumulate at the end of the year and take the 16 at the end of the year, or you can take 4, but once you pass midnight, if you pass it on the train or on the plane or in the bus, you lose the night, because you got 4 nights basically. With travel across the 63, the 10, the 50, and the 63, we're going to have 63 states of our perpetual democratic imperial republic. And this is going to be for rejuvenation as a mass public-private partnership and benevolent factor of our benevolent, loving empire. And of course, this tourism will foster a strong esprit de corps for all who come to join us, for all who have lived here. We're going to have, of course, the rules, regulations for public conduct, and lots of loving, lots of hugging, with consent, lots of dancing in the streets on the Sabbath, which is going to begin on Friday, and We're gonna have mass rejuvenation. We're gonna have mass love, and we're gonna reconcile together in this mass imperial democratic republic of the free, the strong, the brave, the loving, and all who come to join us here, the free, the brave, the strong, the loving. And we're gonna create this new empire of the people, of the free, the brave, the strong, the loving, the kind, the just, the righteous. And the Dragon Army, aka Imperial Democratic Republic, will have only as purpose SSD, security, service, and defense. That's going to be parallel to the Dragon Army. Is going to be the Dancing Goddess Army, the Imperial Integrated Dance League. We're going to, of course, mass do it and mass create. We're going to build more satellites, and we're going to create all across this 63 places of service, security, defense, and we're gonna rebuild our cities, our infrastructure. We're gonna mass finance fitness, build the Forgotten Goddess Temple, on the Canadian-US border, the Imperial People's Coliseum, which is gonna be 11 times bigger than the Caesar Superdome. We'll change names just like I changed names. Keep my name out of their mouth if it's not for blessing. Adrian Hanna Dragon, and that's what we're gonna do from now on. We're gonna mass rehabilitate the economy together. For a new world order, we're going to have the total BDD, the DRT, debt refusion treaty, for the creation of the UE and the Imperial Central Bank. We're going to fuse Canada and United States, merge for total Dragon 911 Dragon Army protocols, and we're going to have building of super computers and places, locales where citizens can go and see, monitor, and I got to know everything that's coming in from the airports and the ports, because that's where most of our plateau and our empire are coming in, where goods are being shipped or transportation passes for the total SSD, security, service, and defense across the empire. We're going to mass finance fitness and mass finance tourism and rebuilding of the infrastructure and build those pyramid, Scarlet, House of the Dragon, Scarlet, and we're going to rebuild the Imperial People's Palace, and of course the House of the Rainbow People's Palace for my fellow neurodivergents and LGBT community. Build the 4, and on the Canadian-US border, the most massive ever structure, which is going to be 11 times bigger than where one of my favorite Super Bowl 47, aka Blackout Bowl, aka Harbor Bowl, was built, fought out over there.